All right, with that, Nick Wright, first things first, weekdays at 3 Eastern on FS1. So I'm in a weird space with Shedeur Sanders. So,
good.
You know, so it'd be very easy to be a troll and marginalize me, but I liked him coming out of college. Then I thought he was way too immature with Legendary and the speeding tickets. Unserious, really bothered me. And then I watched them Friday, and I'm like, stop saying he's not athletic enough. He is more athletic than all but about 10 guys in the league. He is fine. And so now I'm stuck. I did not like, I like the traits. But I said yesterday, if your traits aren't Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, then you better be good at the other stuff, the other 30, 35%. Years ago, you said something very smart. You said the NBA, you don't have to be a great defensive player because offense is 70% of the league. You shouldn't be Harden and be atrocious. Same thing here. Traits are 70% of the league, but you have to do some film study. Like you can't be like, so I am back and forth on Shedeur. But I loved how he played Friday, and then he drove me crazy because he goes after a local radio guy, and I'm like...
Oh, see, so so here's the deal. I actually think you and I were in a similar spot on Shedeur, and the Browns have given us an out, and then I'll get to the radio guy part.
Okay.
So I think you and I both, before the draft, said there's a very real chance he's, like, people were talking about Shedeur versus Cam Ward at 1. And then it moved to, will the Giants take him in the top 5? And then it moved to, should Pittsburgh trade up to 10 or 11 if he's there? And I think you and I were two of the few people that said he might be there for Pittsburgh if they don't move at all, if they just stay where they are in the 20s in round 1, that we thought as a prospect he was a late round 1, round 2 player. And so we weren't as high on him as some, but I don't think any of us thought he was going to fall the way he did. So there's that part of it. Then I don't think you or I loved him as a starting quarterback his rookie year in the NFL. But when he ends up on a team with the oldest quarterback in the league in Joe Flacco, with Kenny Pickett, who is not an NFL quarterback, and in fact, when you have Mike Sando on in an hour, ask him about Kenny Pickett maybe being the first player in the history of his tiers to be in his own tier. Tier 5 this year for Sando was just Kenny Pickett. It's the saddest thing I've ever seen. He has no friends, he has no roommates, he has nothing. He's out there all by himself. And then Dylan Gabriel, who, you know, looks eye to eye with Kyler Murray, literally, then all of a sudden it's like, well, Shedeur might be a good option in this specific quarterback room because Flacco is not playing all 17, Pickett's not a starter, and you watch as much college football as anybody. Nobody watched Oregon last year and was like, that kid, that's a franchise NFL quarterback. So you then add to it that I think Shedeur played quite well under somewhat adverse circumstances in week 1 of the preseason, and you have the recipe for a 5th-round pick starting the season as the backup quarterback for the quarterback most likely to be benched of anyone in the league. So that part of it, I don't think that's in conflict with your previous opinions. There's 28 teams in the league where Shedeur would not be in a quarterback battle. He's on one of the 3 or 4 where he is and where he might end up moving up enough to where he's the eventual starter. There's that. Now, the Tony Grossi thing, Colin. Listen, I know it has been years since you had to go in locker rooms, and it's been some time since I went in locker rooms, but we know that is not uncommon. The athlete going up to the loudmouth radio guy and being like, hey, what'd I do to you? I remember 12 years ago, I don't know, I guess 15 years ago, being in the Chiefs locker room and Matt Castle saying to anyone who would listen in my vicinity, hey, does anybody like this guy? He sure seems to talk a lot of S to everyone, doesn't he? Like, that's pretty common. And so, let me add one other thing about the end of that. And this is just a reality of life. never underestimate the power of charisma or a great smile. Like that Tony Grossi Shedeur interaction reads not great, but when you watch it and Shedeur hits you with the 5,000-watt smile and the laugh at the end, it seems like it's okay. So I had no problem with that. The walk-in with the boombox and the staff, I maybe could have done without, but I also did just turn 40, so I'm becoming a curmudgeonly old man like you. But I thought he played well.
Yeah, he was fun to watch. So I said almost everybody played this weekend. Mahomes, Burrow, Tua, everybody but Tom Brady played this weekend. And Caleb Williams didn't. And my take was standalone, Bears, Dolphins. Ben Johnson's like, it's like when tech companies come out with a new product and they say, you know what, we're going to delay it. It's going to be revolutionary, but we just want to tighten it up. It means the engineering staff's a little behind. My take is Caleb is creating a little bit of drama where it's like, listen, do we want another 9 days or 7 days getting crushed? He's not quite there. We're asking him to do stuff under center, and it was strategic in not playing him, not that he got a bunch of good snaps against the Dolphins. What's your take on that?
I think you have swung the pendulum a little too far on the Caleb stuff, if I'm being honest. I think you are a little too pessimistic at this point, after admittedly you and I were both probably a little too optimistic last year.
All right.
But listen, I would, if I were running an NFL team, I would simply say, hey, what does Andy Reid do in preseason and training camp? Yeah, I'll do that. Because the Chiefs start every year off sharp and ready, and he plays his guys, and Mahomes is out their first preseason game, and they have tough practices. But the second best, in my opinion, coach in football, Sean McVay, does the opposite. So there clearly isn't just one way to go about it. I would be more critical of this if it weren't for the fact it also should be noted the entirety of the Bears' starting offensive line sat. Their starting running back, tight end, and their top 3 wide receivers sat. So, of course, Caleb is going to sit. Now, he does need to play probably more snaps now in week 2 than he otherwise would have. And is this Ben Johnson protecting Caleb? Is this Ben Johnson protecting himself? Is this Ben Johnson simply saying, yeah, we're not exactly where I want us to be yet, but I think there's no harm in waiting an extra week. I'll tell you this much. Like, everybody loves Drake May, even though you can't find the stat, the number, the game where Drake May was better than Caleb last year. Drake May got through 5 passes in week 1. One of them was backwards over his head to the other team. Nobody cares. And so, like, is it good or bad that Caleb didn't have that moment? I'm not sure. But I think I do think it will be a little rocky early as this transition takes place. But I think by Thanksgiving, Colin, Caleb, I believe, is going to look like the player that you and I both believed he would be.
Well, I hope so. So the quarterback, Mike Sando's on in an hour, and I love it. It's an annual survey. I said yesterday, I woke up and I saw it, and it was like, oh, it's like a Christmas present in August. It's great. I love it. Did you have anything in the tiers, because you do your own tiers, anything that jumped out to you as a revelation? Or I thought Bo Nix was a little low. I thought Aaron was a little high at this point. I think if you ask GMs, who would you take today, Aaron or Bo Nix, they would take Bo Nix for a lot of reasons. One, he's just in his athletic prime. But it didn't bother me. But was there anything here that jumped out to you? Well,
first of all, just because you opened the door there, I heard you tease in the previous segment that there's going to be an adjustment tomorrow, is it?
Yes.
To your preseason predictions.
Yes.
And then you revealed that a Charger injury, Rashawn Slater. And so when I was like, and at first I was like, oh, okay, good. Colin, who had every single defending division champion repeating except for the Chiefs, is now going to use the Rashawn Slater injury as a reason to elevate the Chiefs. why do I have a terrible sinking feeling that somehow the Rashawn Slater injury is going to lead to Bo Nix and your beloved Sean Payton going from third to first in the AFC West?
It is.
Somehow Rashawn Slater gets hurt and the Broncos go to first place. I saw that train storming down the tracks. I was like, that's what's happening here. All right, so sorry, no, spoiler alert, I haven't seen the list, but I know that's what's happening. I just know it. All right, now to the list. I thought the list was really good. Now, I am higher on Stafford than most, but not than NFL GMs and front office people, because I think he's the 5th best quarterback in football. Obviously, the 3 or 4 people that had Josh Allen or Lamar as tier 2 are just out of their mind. Like, that to me is not a viable opinion. Unless people are arguing Mahomes is in a tier by himself, which they should, but they're not, then Allen and Lamar have to be there with Burrow in tier 1. Yeah. I know there was a lot of consternation about Jalen Hurts' ranking. Listen, I would have Jalen Hurts ahead of Justin Herbert. I would rather have Jalen Hurts than Jared Goff. But aside from that, I don't have a problem with Jalen Hurts being high tier 2. I also think it should be noted, people are awful quiet these days. You know who we don't hear from so much anymore these days, Colin?
What?
The Brock Purdy truthers. They were chirping at you and me for quite a while, and now he's hanging on for dear life in tier 2, about to drop to tier 3 when this thing comes out next year, and you don't hear from him as much anymore. I thought this quarterback tiers I thought they were really well done, as they typically are. I think Josh Allen's the 2nd best quarterback in football, but 47 people voted him tier 1, 50 voted Joe Burrow. It's such a small margin, I don't really have a problem with it. I think this is a pretty fair reading of the league. I agreed with you. I think Aaron was a touch high. I also thought Kyler. I thought the top of tier 3 are 2 quarterbacks that I just don't really believe in Kyler and Aaron. So I wouldn't have them quite as high. I think Geno's a little disrespected. And listen, I understand. Nobody's ready for Mac Jones 2.0, Bo Nix, to take the league by storm. I'm very excited to see it.
Yeah, by the way, the Brock Purdy thing, and it's going to really bother J-Mac, but I said when Dak as a 4th rounder came in and the Cowboys had Zeke, who was the best back in the league, the best offensive line, an offensive coach, the division was kind of wonky, and they could spend money because they're paying Dak. Yeah, they were 3. And then the more they relied on him. Well, if you go to Brock Purdy's first year as a full-time starter, he had 4 Pro Bowlers on offense. Now their receiving core in this camp is a mess. And in his last 15 games, as the team got old, brittle, is losing defensive players, meaning they're in more shootouts. Do you know what Brock Purdy is in his last 15 games? He's 6-9, and they just paid him. So my take is what Brock Purdy is going through, not only the last 15 games, but in this camp where all his receivers are gone or hurt, is that's the real NFL, not Dak's rookie year or Brock's first 2 years.
Of course. And by the way, listen, some of the Brock Purdy folks are not going to be reasoned with. And I've said this before, but I will say it again. This is essentially a 6-year-long how do you view football war that started with Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo won, but objectively was not that good. And some people were like, nope, he's a winner. He's got it. And there were those of us who were like, I actually think with that coaching and that talent and that scheme, you could throw almost anyone in there and they would be successful. And those folks were like, no, you can't. And by the way, how would you ever prove that? And then they put in literally the last player picked in the draft and added Christian McCaffrey. And instead of those folks being like, oh, yeah, the talent, the scheme, and the coaching, they're like, nope, that guy's a superstar. And then those of us were like, no, he has this amazing team around him. And they said, well, how do you know he wouldn't do it if he didn't have that team around him? And then last year, he didn't have it around him. They won 6 games, and they're like, no, Brock Purdy's still great. Like, he's fine. He's overachieved for his draft status. I'm happy for him and his family. He got paid. But anybody that watches the NFL and thinks he is a force multiplier or he is a substantially, that he is unfairly ranked at the 14, 15, 16 range, they are not open to the evidence that keeps pouring in year after year or game after game.
I will give you credit, though. The fact that you were able to sniff out Bo Nix going.
I know it, of course. I was shocked when I saw you didn't have the Broncos in the playoffs. I'm like, listen, I know Uncle Colin really well. And one of the things I know is around this time of year, he loves him some Sean Payton, loves him some, how impressive is it really to go to 7 straight conference title games and win 3 and go to 3 straight Super Bowls? Like, we see that all the time. And now, do I wish you had this type of energy for J.P. Losman and the Bills circa 2009? Sure I do. But listen, everybody can't be the 2024 Denver Broncos who went 0-7 against AFC playoff teams, but now they're a real threat because have you seen Cortland Sutton? I mean, it's the silliest thing I've ever heard, but I'm glad you're now going to join the chorus on it. And please explain tomorrow how Rashawn Slater's injury moves the Broncos up 2 spots and the Chiefs stay where they're at. I don't see it, but I'm sure you will explain it.
I will. First things first, my buddy Nick Wright, as always, good seeing you.
See you, Colin.
Yeah, 2 major moves tomorrow.